Okay guys, so if you're anything at all like me, you like growing tomatoes, you like all these guys, but I've got way too many here to go inside of a salad, so I've got to do something with them, otherwise they're just going to rot and fall off the plant. So here's where this stuff comes in. This is crushed tomatoes. I quite like these ones. It gives a different texture to something like this, which is pureed tomatoes, and this is really easy to make inside of the oven. You don't need to worry about washing up a pan, you don't need to strain it, and it's really nice. There's a couple different ways of doing it, but the way that I like gets a really strong flavour and is just awesome. So I'll show you guys how I make it. Okay, so I like this method because it's really simple. It doesn't require much washing up, and if I don't have enough for a big massive pot of tomatoes, then I can still make them up and I can stop them from rotting on the tree. So these are little bottling jars. They're 2-part little lids, and these handle quite a lot of heat. So I'm going to do them straight in the oven. So I'll pick off the tomatoes that I want, so say these little guys, and then I will fill up these pots. So I'll do that now. Okay, so I have a nice little selection of tomatoes here. These guys are basic bromas, and they grow really well and crop out a lot. This one is my current favourite. That is a black cherry tomato, and they are the most tastiest tomatoes I've ever tasted. And they will make up a very nice sauce. These ones are little mini pear tomatoes, and quite a subtle flavour, which go quite nice in some different things. And here I have some just regular cherry tomatoes, and they are very nice. And this last one is little ox heart tomatoes, and they are very intense, and they'll make a very nice sauce. So if you'll notice, there's quite a lot of air that surrounds these bottles inside of it. So when I cook them up, they're going to reduce down, and they're going to stay in the oven with that lid on and allowing all of the tomato juice to just boil up and then evaporate out, and then I'm going to add more tomatoes in it as it cooks. Okay, so I have admittedly a very basic oven here. There's nothing particularly special about it. When I bought the house, it was a cheap one, but it does a job. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the oven to about 100 degrees. It doesn't need to be particularly hot because it's going to stay in here for a couple of hours while it all reduces down. And then these are just going to go straight in. Okay, so while they're in there, they are going to reduce down, which means that all the juice around it is going to evaporate out and become a lot stronger, and the flavour will intensify inside of it, which is what I want. Okay, another thing to note is that I haven't put any seasoning inside of it. I haven't put any basil, I haven't put any salt, pepper, sugar or anything like that inside of it. I'm a chef, so whenever I like to cook it, I like to add it all in the final thing that I'm making. So if I'm making a soup, I want to be able to throw it in and season it at the end on the soup. If there's salt in it now, it might make it a little bit harder to make up whatever the final thing I'm going to make out of it is. So I leave it there, I don't add anything to it, and I leave it really simple. So this is going to stay in here for a couple of hours, and then I will come back to it and show you how it goes from there. Okay, so while these are boiling down quite nicely, I've picked a whole lot of more tomatoes. There's a selection of all the ones that are inside of the bottles here, and as they break down, they're going to fill up all the extra gaps of air that are between all the tomatoes. So when they do that, I'm going to start putting extra tomatoes on the top, and I'm just going to keep on doing it until I can't really see a layer of water at the bottom of it. But I'll show you pictures of that when it gets there. Okay, so as you can see, some of the tomatoes are starting to boil inside of their little containers. So as they do, they will drop a lot of moisture, which is not what I want to put in the sauces. So when they do, like this one here, I'll just drop some more tomatoes in there, and these ones here. I'll just keep on dropping tomatoes in there until they're full and until I cannot see any more juice on the bottom of it. I just want it to be pure tomatoes. So all that flavour will concentrate inside of it and just make a really nice sauce. So this will take a couple of hours. I'll just keep them in there. There's no rush. Just let them do their thing until they have pretty much grown up, until they have dropped all the juice and the majority of the water inside of it has boiled out. So my microphone decided to play silly buggers on me, and it did not want to record what I was saying. So you've got a bit of a voiceover now. So
I'll try and remember what I was talking about, and I will wing it a little bit. The tomatoes in here have been cooking for, I think it was about 4 or 5 hours at this stage. I went out to the shops, I came back, and they've reduced down really, really nicely. I had it at a really low temperature, I turned it down slightly more, and I brought it in. So, as you can see, the juices inside of it are surrounding the tomatoes quite nicely, and I'm going to add a few more tomatoes just to bring it up and fill up the bottle as much as possible. And then it's time to put the lid on. The lids are quite handy in these sort of bottles. It's a 2 pull-out lid, and the lid will create a very nice seal around it, and you can tighten it up very, very well, which will stop all the gas and everything getting out of it, and stop anything getting into it, more importantly, and keep it so it will stay fresh and stay nice on the shelf without you having to do very much to it. So as you can see, I put it on there and I squeezed it really, really tight, and then it's all going back inside the oven. So I'm going to do the rest of them that are there, and then I'm going to let them cook in there for about another half hour, so the fresh tomatoes are cooked down, and any sort of bacteria or anything else like that inside of it will die, pretty much. And they will last quite a while on the shelf, and you don't have to do too much to it. So this is what the bottles look like after they've had another half an hour inside the oven. They've created a nice firm tight seal around it. One thing to notice on these sort of bottles is they've got a little pop-up on the top of the bottles, which will indicate if they've created a good seal or if they haven't. If the popper, after the bottle cools down, is still staying up, they have a very good seal on it. If they've been sitting on the shelf for a while and you pop the top of it, and they don't actually pop, then you know it also hasn't taken a very good seal and you shouldn't use it. So it's basically a nice little safety device inside of it to tell if the stuff inside of it is still good. So just for an idea about the amount of tomatoes that I used into these, that bowl there, I filled up about 3 times after I filled up the jars themselves, just with the tomatoes. And that went into about 6 of the 250ml bottles there. So that'll give you an idea about how intense the tomato flavour inside of it's going to be. When you buy them from the shops, they are weak, pale, and they're just horrible. You cannot compare the difference with this one and that one. But yeah, they are awesome, and thanks for watching, guys.